Hi guys, welcome to another Edpuzzle lesson. Today you will be learning how to find two measures of spread, the range and the IQR. So this is today's focused learning target. Given a data set, I'll be able to find the range and IQR of the data set. So first, let's take a look at the range. So the range gives you like a very basic idea of how widely spread out your data is. So let's take a look at the steps to finding the range. So first, you're going to reorder the numbers from smallest to largest. So least to greatest, smallest to largest, same thing. You're reordering the data set from the smallest number to the biggest number. Next, you're going to find the largest and smallest numbers. The range is simply the largest number minus the smallest number. So let's take a look at an example. It asks us to find the range. So first, I am going to reorder from least to greatest. So smallest to largest. So 2, 4. Remember to kind of cross out as you go. 5, 8, and then 10. Right? And then I'm going to think about what is the smallest number here and the largest number. So 10 is the largest number, and 2 is the smallest number. Again, 10 is the largest number, and 2 is the smallest number. And to find the range, we do the largest number minus the smallest number. So we're going to do 10 minus 2, which equals 8. So I know that the range of this data set is 8. Let's look at another example. So remember, first, we want to reorder from least to greatest. Make sure you're writing the actual example problems down too. So I have 1, 2, 3, 3, then 4, then 100. What are my largest and smallest numbers? So 100 is the largest number of this data set. And then 1 is the smallest number of this data set. So the range is the largest number minus the smallest number. So it's going to be 100 minus 1, which equals 99. Notice that I have a very large range right here. That means my data is very widely spread out. But if you actually look at the data that's given, notice that everything else but the 100 is kind of all together. So the 100 skews our data. This is why the range only gives us a basic idea of the spread, but sometimes it's not the best measure of spread. So after the next example, we'll talk about another kind of measure of spread. This next example is on Edpuzzle, so please find the range of this data set. Remember to reorder from least to greatest first. So before we jump into IQR, let's first look at quartiles. So what are quartiles? So quartiles are basically values that split your data into quarters. So it's dividing the data into fourths. So think quartile, kind of sounds like quarter. That's a good way to remember it. So I like to kind of think of quartiles as a box that's divided into fourths, so quarters. And so this bottom quarter is Q1, so the first quartile, and then I have the second quartile, and then the third quartile. So the second quartile is actually going to be the same number as the median. And one way to think about that is, you know how we talked about how the median is the middle? So notice that right here, the median, or the second quartile, is right in the middle. It's the halfway point. And then the first quartile is the halfway point of that lower half. And then the third quartile is the halfway point of the upper half. And then half of half is a quarter. So that's possibly a good way to remember your first and third quartiles. And it'll start to make more sense as you look at more examples. So first, let's look at how to find quartiles. So step 1 is to reorder the numbers from least to greatest. So if you have a data set, you're going to reorder it from the smallest number to the largest number. And then next, you're going to find the median. Again, the median, like we talked last time, is that middle number. Once you find the median, that's going to allow you to split the data into a lower half and an upper half. The median of your lower half is going to be the first quartile, aka Q1. And then the median of the upper half is going to be the third quartile, also known as Q3. Again, the median of the lower half is Q1, and the median of the upper half is Q3, so the first and third quartiles. So let's look at an example here. Notice that the data is already reordered from least to greatest. I notice that the median, the middle number, is 5. So I'm going to split the data right here. I'm going to split it into halves. Right here, one thing to make sure is that you do not include the 5 in your lower or upper halves. The 5 is the median, it's by itself. It's not included in either of the halves. So let's look at the lower half. The median, the middle of the lower half, is 4. And in the upper half, the median of the upper half is 7. So 4, the middle of my lower half, is the first quartile. And then the 5, the median, is also known as the second quartile. And then 7, which is the middle of the upper half, is my third quartile. So again, 4 is the middle of my lower half, so it's the first quartile, and 7 is the middle of my upper half, so that's the third quartile. Let's look at this data set, again reordered from least to greatest. So notice here, I kind of have two middle numbers. So the true middle, the actual median, must be somewhere right in between 3 and 5. So in this case, the 3 is included in the lower half and the 5 is included in the upper half, since they're not actually the medians. So again, 3 is included in the lower half and 5 is included in the upper half. So what's the middle of my lower half? It's 3. And then the middle of my upper half is 6. So I know that my first quartile, Q1, is 3. And then my second quartile right here, right in between 3 and 5, is 4. And then my third quartile is the middle of the upper half, so 6. Again, Q1 is the middle of your lower half, and Q3 is the middle or median of the upper half of your data. So on Edpuzzle, please let me know the first and third quartiles of this data set. Notice here that it has already been reordered from least to greatest. So now let's take a look at the IQR. So IQR is short for interquartile range. Notice the word quartile, right? So the IQR gives you the spread of the middle 50% of the data. So it focuses on the middle half of the data. It doesn't focus on the bottom 25% or the upper 25%. So it focuses on the middle 50% of the data. So again, let me draw that quartile box from earlier. Split into quarters. So the IQR focuses on this colored region, so the shaded region of your data. So it talks about the middle 50% of your data, and this is where the first and third quartiles, so Q1 and Q3, are going to play a role. So how do we find this interquartile range? First, surprise, surprise, you are going to reorder your data set from the smallest to the largest number, so from least to greatest. And then you are going to find the first and third quartiles, so Q1 and Q3. This is what we just covered a few minutes ago. And then once you find your first and third quartiles, the IQR, so your interquartile range, is simply Q3 minus Q1. So let's look at the first example. We're given a data set and we have to find the interquartile range. So what do we do first? We have to reorder the numbers from smallest to largest. So my smallest is 2, 3, and then I notice I have 2 4s. Make sure you write both down. And then a 5, and then a 7. And next, we're going to find the median, so the middle. That's actually right in between the 4 and the 4. So I'm going to draw a line right here so that we can better see the lower and the upper halves. Remember here, we include the left 4 in the lower half and the right 4 in the upper half, since the median is technically somewhere in between. The middle of my lower half is 3, the middle of my upper half is 5. So that's saying that Q1 is 3 and Q3 is 5. So I have my first and third quartiles, and the interquartile range is simply the third quartile minus the first quartile, so 5 minus 3, which equals 2. So my IQR is 2. So let's take a look at another example. Remember, we want to first reorder from least to greatest. So my smallest number is 1, then 2, 2. Remember to write every single number down. and a 6, and then my largest number is an 8. Now in this case, our median is 3. So I'm going to draw a line right down 3. Remember, in this case, we do not include the median in the lower or upper halves. So 3 is not included in the lower half, 3 is not included in the upper half. So the lower half, we have 1, 2, and 2. What is the middle of that lower half? It's 2. And then the middle of my upper half is 6. So my first quartile is 2, and my third quartile is 6. And the IQR is the third quartile minus the first quartile. So 6 minus 2 equals 4. So the spread of the middle 50% of this data is 4. Go ahead and rewind and rewatch if you would like to, and then try this example on Edpuzzle. Remember to reorder first. Okay, so today you learned how to find the range and interquartile range. These values help you get a better idea of the spread of any data. And remember, the range gives you a more basic idea, whereas the interquartile range focuses on the middle 50% of the data. So a lot of the times, the interquartile range, so the IQR, is actually a better measure to use. But the range gives you a good general idea. That's why we also talk about the range as well. So be sure to submit your notes and see you guys next time.